The sun beats down on perfectly clean, wide boulevards. Shiny new white cars cruise these streets, their polished surfaces reflecting the blinding light. Inside sit people with eerily calm, almost blank expressions. And somewhere in this dazzling display of cleanliness and order, tucked away from prying eyes like a hidden jewel, lies Turkmenistan, a country where the rules aren't made for your convenience or well-being, but for total control. Here, your most private life, especially if you're a woman, basically isn't your own. Everything works differently here. Your day doesn't start with picking out an outfit or deciding your mood, but with an unspoken yet mandatory compliance check. On the streets, you'll see women in long dresses, usually in dark or muted tones, with their heads carefully covered. Their movements seem measured, their gazes restrained, almost downcast. It's like the very air is thick with invisible rules, pressuring everyone to shrink back and make themselves smaller so they won't draw any unwanted attention. This world operates by completely different laws. Not because the landscape around them is harsh and unforgiving like in the endless Arctic, but because the laws themselves are brutal. Here, freedom isn't a basic right you're born with. It's a ghost of an idea, almost completely stripped away from most people. This creates a unique culture where the main goal is to be invisible, to be correct, to be exactly what those in power want you to be. For us, it might seem totally natural to wear makeup, paint our nails, choose clothes that we like and that suit us. Here, that could lead to more than just dirty looks. It could mean real interrogation or much more serious trouble with the law. In Turkmenistan, makeup isn't just makeup. It's an unintentional act of rebellion, a challenge to a system that believes women's appearance should be as neutral as possible, not eye-catching, stripped of anything that could be seen as provocative in any possible sense of the word. Beauty salons are under strict surveillance and only offer the bare minimum of approved services. Manicures are often flat-out banned, especially bright ones. Bright colors in clothing are frequently frowned upon or outright prohibited. Here, they might ban you from sitting in the front seat of a car if the driver is a man who isn't your close relative. Driving a car yourself? That's practically impossible for the vast majority of women. All these restrictions are sold as caring for traditions and safety. Here's one concrete, mind-blowing example. Special patrols might walk the streets of the capital and other cities, stopping women to check if they have any nail polish on, even clear polish. For us, that's absolutely trivial, part of basic self-care. For them, it's potential grounds for writing you up and punishment. Or the ban on wearing form-fitting clothes, not because it's uncomfortable or impractical in the climate, but because it makes the body visible, emphasized, and the body, according to the system, should be hidden, concealed from outside eyes. This almost obsessive fixation on controlling women's appearance is paradoxical to the point of absurdity. The state loudly proclaims that it protects women, but at the same time strips them of the most basic right to control their own body and how it looks. True beauty here isn't the kind that shines and draws attention, but the kind that nobody sees or that completely follows strict imposed rules. The ability to blend into the crowd as much as possible, to never stand out under any circumstances, to become a completely invisible part of the background, that's what's valued above all else here. And this requires tremendous inner discipline, constant self-control that eventually becomes second nature. Home, your personal living space, becomes the only place where you can loosen this external control a little. Behind closed doors, where there are no outside eyes and no patrols walking around, a woman can take off her headscarf, put on something comfortable and familiar, maybe even apply light makeup for herself, for her loved ones. But even here, in the most personal, seemingly untouchable spaces, you constantly feel the invisible shadow of the outside world. Fear seeps everywhere, poisoning even the most intimate moments. Getting ready to go outside becomes more than just getting dressed. It's a real, daily ritual. Not a ritual of beauty or style, but a ritual of protection, carefully checking the length of sleeves and hem, making sure the headscarf tightly covers hair and neck, choosing a dress in the most proper, non-provocative cut and color. This isn't just getting dressed. It's putting on reliable armor against judgment, against unnecessary questions, against the ever-present surveillance that can appear out of nowhere. The constant external control creates tense, strained relationships between people. Strangers try their best to avoid extra glances and any contact. Even within families or close communities, you often feel tension. You never know who might report the slightest violation of unspoken rules. Trust becomes rare and incredibly valuable currency. But control over appearance is just one layer of this complex reality. In Turkmenistan, the very idea of personal choice, especially in such fundamental things as starting your own family, is also subject to harsh, relentless regulation. Marriage is often not a free decision between two people in love, but a pre-planned arrangement between families, or even more, between families that must coordinate all details with state involvement. It seems incredible to us that your own consent to marriage might simply not be asked for, not considered necessary. Here, that's a sad reality for many. A girl might learn about her upcoming marriage from parents or older relatives only after all the major decisions have been made. Her personal desires, feelings, hopes, or plans might simply have no meaning in this scheme. The wedding celebration. In most cultures around the world, this is the culmination of a love story, a celebration of the couple's individuality. Here, it's more of a formal, mandatory ritual that firmly establishes status and demonstrates complete submission to established norms. Guests gather. All ancient and modern traditions are observed. Her smile in the photos might just be a mask, because refusing a marriage that parents or influential relatives have arranged is practically impossible. Refusal isn't just not accepted by society, it can lead to serious problems and shame for the entire family. Not because this is how people have lived for centuries and it's an unbreakable ancestral custom, but because it's more convenient for the system to control society starting from its most basic, intimate units. Marriage becomes a transaction where the woman is a party with no voice, and her fate is decided by others. Taking a few photos from a wedding or family celebration and sending them to relatives living abroad, that's a potentially risky action. Any image, any text, any information that might seem wrong, unpatriotic, or too revealing, and here the concept of revealing is expanded to absurdity, including even simple family snapshots, can immediately become grounds for close attention from security agencies. All private life is essentially under an invisible, all-penetrating dome of total surveillance. Not because this is care for your well-being, but because this is total control. You can't even simply share joy or sadness without going through multiple invisible filters of what's permitted and safe. The internet, which for the vast majority of the planet's inhabitants has long become an integral part of life, a space of information freedom and communication, is here, first and foremost, a field of total, unprecedented surveillance. Every action you take online can be recorded, analyzed, and interpreted against you. Trying to use a program to bypass blocks, VPN, isn't just a technical action, but an implicit challenge to the system. Trying to find information that doesn't match the official, only correct version of events is a direct path to danger. All of this, together, creates an atmosphere of constant, suffocating fear. Fear becomes part of everyday life, like the air you breathe. You live constantly sensing the invisible, hostile presence of those watching you from the shadows. Even an ordinary phone conversation might be listened to, and your personal messages might be read, not because you've done something wrong, but because you might theoretically think or feel something that doesn't fit into the rigid framework established from above. This paradoxical morality, where people are stripped of the most basic rights and freedom of choice, is perhaps the cornerstone of the entire system. The state loudly declares that it protects society from false Western influence, promiscuity, and immorality, but in reality simply creates a society where the individual, especially women, has no right to their own will, to their own desire, to the right to say no, to independence in making decisions. A woman stripped of the right to choose her appearance, to drive a car, to choose her life partner, to have a voice in her own fate, is essentially reduced to the level of an object of control, not a full, independent member of society. And this control extends even beyond state borders. Travel abroad is strictly limited for everyone, but especially harsh for women over 40, as well as those who have family obligations within the country. Until you're 40, you simply cannot leave Turkmenistan without special permission, which is practically impossible to get. This isn't just a restriction on freedom of movement, it's a powerful tool to keep people inside the country, to prevent them from seeing another world, comparing their life with the lives of others, understanding that you can live completely differently, have more freedoms. Not because the country isn't hospitable and doesn't love its citizens, but because it's in a panic about the outside world and its potential influence on its citizens' minds. Tourists, who are sometimes allowed into the country, see only the parade, carefully retouched facade, perfectly clean streets, pompous marble monuments, ostentatious luxury. But they never see this hidden, real life, this constant, suffocating tension that ordinary people live with every day. Life in Turkmenistan is constant, daily adaptation to conditions of total control. It's the highest art of survival, finding ways to remain human, to preserve your dignity when you're stripped of the right to be yourself in everything, even in small things. This requires incredible, almost superhuman inner strength and resilience, the ability to find tiny spaces of freedom where it seems like there simply aren't any. Your home, your personal hearth, becomes not just a building, but a real, albeit fragile fortress, the only place where you can be a little more free, where you can breathe a little more fully. But even there, you constantly feel the distant echo of the outside world.